And then JT came forward in his little 7-year-old self, and he came running to me. And of course, I burst into tears, and we hugged and we're talking. And the only question that I had for him was, did we agree to this? Everybody's telling me that.
Today's guest is Sarina Baptista, and Sarina is a certified evidential psychic medium, spiritual teacher, award winning author, and international speaker. She was a featured speaker for the Life and Death and Beyond International Conference in Crete, Greece, and teaches classes as a visiting medium at Lilydale, New York during their summer program. She is a presenter at the IONS Conference, the International Association of Near Death Studies, and has created many training programs, including spiritual mentoring, long distance training, workshops, and retreats. Sarina discovered her gifts through her own tragedy, the passing of her 7-year-old son, JT, in March of 2007. She learned that her son did not really die. He was still very close and led her to her incredible gifts. It is Sarina's mission to help you find purpose and connection to your highest divine self, create the bridge for conversation with loved ones who have passed, and mentor psychics and mediums to be master messengers. Sarina Baptista is the bridge between this world and the next. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. And I really just am just so delighted to be here. And just anytime I can talk about JT, anytime I can share share my beautiful boy, I will do it. I will take every opportunity. So I really appreciate this time.
Yeah. I know the story, but I love this story. So I think just even beginning to share it and tell us about him would be wonderful.
My precious baby. So he was 7 when he left. He caught the flu on a Monday, and Friday I went into his room and he wasn't breathing. And I had spent, it was just this incredible story. Now, obviously, when I go into his room and he's not breathing, I start CPR, holler to my husband to call 911. They stayed on the line with us until the first responders got there, who took over the CPR for me. And then I was, what is going on? I couldn't believe. I mean, you don't even think about something like that. He had the flu. You don't even think about anything like that, that could happen. The night before, the day before, I was very ill with food poisoning. And I thought to myself, gosh, he's still sick. Should I get him to the hospital? And we had had encounters with the hospital before. It was not great. It was not great encounters. And I knew that he would be scared. I knew that he wouldn't want that. But still, as a mom, you think, okay, what should I do for my child here? I was so sick that there's no way I would have been able to get him there. Now I understand that that was by design because I wasn't supposed to take him to the hospital. He wanted to leave from the house, and he told us that later. So I'm jumping ahead a little bit. But that day when we went to the hospital and they had worked on him for 45 minutes at my house, took him by ambulance to the hospital, worked on him for another hour trying to bring him back, and he just was not going to come back. And the doctor came into that little room. They have this little room off the side of the emergency room where they take parents and others probably too when they know that your loved one isn't going to make it. And I would imagine, especially for parents, because who wants to be in a crowded space when you learn that you are never going to see your child again in that way? So we lost him, and those words still echo in my head. And and so we left the hospital. We got to say goodbye. Weirdly, this body on a gurney. It was so bizarre. And my husband and I said goodbye, and then we went home. We had 2 other little kids at home. And it was interesting the way that everything worked out. Now, I knew that it wasn't just a random thing because my daughter was sick as well. Her fever was actually higher. She was fine. And I thought, well, why did he leave? And most of all, where is he? I would look out his window, his bedroom window at night, just saying, where are you? I know you're out there somewhere. Where are
Mhm.
you? I had some encounters with some past life things. And so I knew that this wasn't our first go around. I knew that we do come back, we reincarnate. But again, I didn't know what that meant for this. And so it was very early on that he started sending us signs. He would visit people that I knew, not me, which really irritated me, but he would visit them and say, "Tell my mom I'm okay. Tell her that, that we're going to be okay." And so I just held on to that. And there was a day, probably maybe not even a week after he passed, that I was sitting at my desk and I had this list of phone numbers, names and phone numbers that was sitting there. And this list of numbers were for people to call to let them know that JT had passed so that I wouldn't have to do it. And I looked at the list and I said, somebody knows why. Someone knows why this happened. I have no idea why I thought that or where that was coming from, but I ran my finger down the list. I stopped on a name, and it was the parent of a friend of mine. Now, I'd met her maybe once. She met JT maybe once. So it's not like she was right here. She lived in California. We were in Colorado at the time. So it's not like she knew us and that she was really familiar with us. But I said, she knows. She knows. And so I called her. Her husband answered the phone and I asked, is Nancy there? And he said, yes. He went and got her and she got onto the phone and I didn't even say hello. I didn't say anything but why? And she said, well, go get a pen and paper because JT visited me last night and he has a message for you. And the message was so poignant and it was exactly what I needed, that I was the perfect mom, that I did things exactly the way that he needed me to do in his passing. In other words, you didn't have to take me to the hospital. I didn't want to go. And then also, the last one was that he tried twice before to leave, but this time he had to go. And that one also just rang in my ears over and over and over again. And I know when he was talking about one of the times was in the hospital, when we had to take him to the hospital because he had croup. The other one was where he got some kind of virus in his throat and his throat was closing up. So he needed to leave in this manner. And having those messages from him, knowing that he was going to other people, just gave me such relief. It gave me um, such awareness too that, hey, he didn't just leave. He's not gone. Where is he? And so that's where my journey began.
You know,
Wow. Wow. So continue. Just your journey begins. What I'm curious about is you already are aware of past lives, you believed in reincarnation. Can you say a little bit about that to give context and then continue with where your journey began?
Yes, absolutely. So it was maybe about 5 weeks after he left. And he had been, again, going to different people, talking to them, having them relay messages to me. At the same time, I'm saying, why isn't he coming to me? Why aren't I receiving any information? And I had other encounters. My stepbrother passed when I was 17, and I had very vivid encounters with him, very vivid dreams, vivid communication. Now, again, I didn't know I was a medium at the time. So it was just a, what they call, after death communication with him. I didn't really understand it at the time, but I was 17. And so the possibility was there. So that's when I said, "Why isn't he coming to me?" And
Mm,
obviously the reason was because of my grief. Grief does block that energy. It blocks them from being able to communicate with us. They really try though, and I have to say, JT did above and beyond. And 5 weeks after he left, I was at the cemetery and I was just having such a bad day. And obviously, those are to be expected. And I found that if I went to the cemetery, people didn't look at me funny when I would scream and rant and have an absolute fit. It was they just left you alone. They know you're grieving, and so that's where I went to grieve. I couldn't do it at my house. I still had, a 5 and a 3-year-old, and they were wondering, "What's happening to mom?" "What's happening to mommy?" So I left the home to do the grieving, and I went to the cemetery. And this particular day, oh god, I was angry. I was angry and just hurt and, just feeling that ache in my heart of him not being here, and I was literally pounding the dirt, over his grave, pounding, and something caught my eye. Something went zipping by and it caught my eye, and so it was enough for me to stop. "What is that?" And so I just got quiet. I got low to the ground, and a dragonfly went by. And I said, "Wow, okay, that's kinda neat." Neat that the dragonflies are out. We were in Colorado, so dragonflies didn't come back out until May, and this was about May, and so I thought, "Well, that's very interesting." And so then he zipped by again. He went the other way, zipped by, and I thought, "Oh, wow, okay." And then he came in front of me and just danced right in front of me. And I thought, it's JT. I knew at that moment that it was JT. And how I knew, who knows? But I knew. I knew that that was him letting me know that he was okay. So fast forward just a couple of days. 2 days later, I am gathered with, a lot of friends of his. We had a Lego club. He was 7. So, we would get together
Mm.
with other kids, and they would build Legos and just have a great time, and so this was in memory of him. This was the last one. And again, May, of that year, 2007, and, we were putting all the Legos away, and one of his friends pointed to the board, that we had the Legos on. It's one of those boards that you can put them on and carry the Legos around, and he said, "Dragonfly." And I thought he was talking about a sticker that was on one of the pieces, and so I put my finger down to that piece. I said, "You mean this one?" I didn't even see it at the time, but a dragonfly was on the board and jumped up onto my finger, and I pulled my finger up, and he tucked his wings in and just looked at me. He just hung out. It was incredible. This was just a day or so after my experience at the cemetery. So I explained that this was JT and he's okay, and he wants us to be okay too. And so I started getting dragonfly signs everywhere. It was wonderful. Anytime that I needed him, he would be there in dragonfly form. And it was just so beautiful to have that experience with him. He left in March, and in August, I was again searching for, where are you? What's going on here? And I had done some past life regression work with Brian Weiss, and I thought, "Oh, wow, maybe Brian knows. Maybe somewhere in my past life, maybe somewhere somebody knows what's going on." And so I looked up when Brian was, where he was. Was doing seminars all over the place for Hay House. And the next time he was available was in Seattle in November. Now, this was August. And so I thought, oh, there's no way I can wait till November. So I was looking again, okay, where else? What else can I do? What else can I look at? And I ran across work by Dr. Michael Newton. And his
Mhm.
book, Journey of Souls, is all about the life between lives place. So it takes past life and it amps it up to when do you make these decisions? When do you make the choices of coming into your lifetime, coming into the incarnation? So I thought, well, maybe I can find some information through his website. I read the book, resonated with it, and got onto his webpage and found a local person who had been trained by him to do the life between lives regressions. And I called and the message said that it would be a 6-month wait. I thought, oh, I can't wait. I can't wait to get my answers. I've got to know now what's going on. I know that there's something here. I had those friends who had connection with JT and he kept telling them he's got big plans for you. You agreed to this and all of these crazy things. And I thought, there's just, how could, what would I, what would I be doing agreeing to having him leave? So I left a message with, and it was actually Linda Bachman. I don't know if you're familiar with her, but she's in Colorado and she does just amazing soul work. And so I left the message. Within 5 minutes, her husband called me back and said, "We have a cancellation for next week. Do you want it?" I
Mm.
said, "Yes, yes." So the next week, I went to her, and it is a process. It's a full day process. At the time, this was again August 2007. We went through a lot of different things and then ended up, I came out of a lifetime and was waiting. And in the background, I saw all these shadows of people. And then JT came forward in his little 7-year-old self and he came running to me. And of course, I burst into tears and we hugged and we're talking. And the only question that I had for him, well, there were many questions, obviously, but the main one was, did we agree to this? Everybody's telling me that. In a moment, from standing there, we were in front of this window looking in to this other room, and it was our soul family sitting around a table. I could see me, I could see my husband, I could see my two other children, and JT. And I heard myself say, "Yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do it." Knowing I had just agreed to having him leave. And so that tied that around. And then the Brian Weiss connection again, he was going to be in Washington with someone else I'd never heard of. His name was John Holland, and he was a medium. And I thought, well, if this John Holland character is good enough to be on stage with Brian Weiss, then maybe I should look into him. And so I started reading his book, and I found that he actually was going to be in my area in a couple of weeks doing a seminar, doing a talk. And so, of course, I signed up for that, read his book, and in the course of reading his book, discovered I was a medium. And then I had a conversation with a medium, someone who I'd never talked to before. I'd never had any readings like this before. And she also said, "Did you know you're a medium? You are the bridge between this world and the next." And so I asked her, "How do you do that? Do you just wake up starting to talk to dead people?" And she said, "No, training, training, training." So I immediately got into training and it was very, very fast. It happened very quickly. Within a month, kids from the other side were coming to me to get messages to their parents. And I didn't know what I was doing. It was so early on. I mean, we're talking a month into training, and but I muddled through. I gave my messages, they were right on, and I still hadn't had conversation with JT yet because, again, I'm working through all the grief. I mean, he had just left in March, so I'm working through all of that, and then it was probably maybe about just 2 more months, 2 or 3 more months when he and I started to have conversations, and at first it was just a word or 2 because that's all I could get before bursting into tears, and then boom, it was gone. I put, the wall went up,
Mhm.
the energy wall went up, and so it was probably another month after that where just diligently meditating every day, practicing every day, and making sure that I do whatever I needed to do to connect with him. And it was just like a switch flipped, and all of a sudden we were having conversations. It was just amazing.
Mm. Yeah, I know. There's like no, it's an amazing story. And I know there's more. I know there's more.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I don't even know where to start with questions, and I just wanna make sure whatever question I ask leads to the place that feels, I don't know, there it's all important. But when you and he started talking, and now that you've talked for years,
Yes.
what are some of the most salient messages that not only apply to your situation with your son, but to the collective?
That is what a wonderful question. It was probably when we started having conversations, I started asking him, "Where are you? What are you doing? What's your focus? What kinds of things are you working on?" Because I knew at that point from the work that Michael Newton did, Dr. Newton did, that we do a lot of stuff in between our lifetimes. We're very active. And so I asked him, "What are you doing?" And he showed me this ball of fire in his hands. He put his hands out and he showed me a ball of fire. And I said, "Well, what is that?" And he says, "Creation." And I thought, "Well, that's a little deep for me." This is not this is my 7-year-old, but it's not. It's not my 7-year-old. This
Right.
is his soul self. He is timeless. And by that time too, I had found some significant lifetimes that he shared with me, that the two of us shared together. And we do like the mother-son thing. We definitely like to do that. Such a connection. But yes, this ball of fire. And I said, "Well, what are you creating?" And he said, planets, life forms. And so he says, "I'm part of the creation team." And he says, "And you are too."
Mm.
And a lot of us are here. A lot of us are. We have this is such a special time on the planet right now. So many of us who maybe didn't want to come back, right? Said, "Oh, I've done that. Oh, I've had those experiences." We're back now because we are recreating the world. We're recreating our reality. And so and these concepts, I'll tell you, I had to get up and walk away from the conversation a few times
Mhm.
because they were so big. And I thought, "Oh, I don't know if I can handle this right now. Let me go have a glass of wine and then I'll come back and let's talk some more." And by that time, so a few years had passed, and I had put out a book, and it's my very first book. It is funny, I look at that one as being my starter book. And as soon as that one was published, he said, "Okay, it's time for my book now." And I said, "Well, it's going to be
Mhm.
kind of hard for you to write that, hon, because you know there's physical limitations there." He says, "Mom, you're gonna write it for me. You're going to be my words. You're going to be able to put it into print for me. I'm going to give you the information, and then we're going to get this out there." And again, huge concepts that I had never heard before in this book. It's called My View from Heaven, and he starts from the beginning. It's just amazing. It's a very introductory book, let's say, in the beginning. about, okay, what happens after we die. And for him, if everybody has a different experience. For
Mhm.
him, it was a certain way, and he described it a certain way. And then what happens after that? And then why do we come here in the first place? Why are we here? And what are we doing over there? It really, he goes into a lot of detail. And it was again one of those things where I had to, stop what I
Mm.
was writing, walk away and say, "Okay, I'm gonna pick this up in about an hour." About that amount of time to assimilate this. I knew it was true
Mhm.
because these were things I'd never heard of before, and where would I come up with that? So I knew it was him. I knew it was true, but it took me a bit. There were some concepts like the Michael Newton's concepts of the in between space, and of course the different layers, different frequencies of dimensions, and there was a lot there, a lot to unpack. But again, JT he's a teacher. He's a master teacher on the other side, and he starts very basic and then he builds on that, which I thought was just
Mhm.
perfect for the audience.
Mm.
It's not, it might not be a beginner book for someone who has just lost somebody, but give them a couple months and then it's a great book for them to read. Where's my loved one? And why did we come to do this? Why am I suffering like this? Why am I doing this? So great information, definitely. But yeah, it was a lot.
It's amazing that you said that, because I've had that experience myself where my guide has shared with me the whole process of what they have taught me. So much information that I don't really have the platform to share, but it is all about us learning that there is so much more, and so it is beautiful that he was sharing, and it really was a confirmation for me. I didn't know this part, and so it is a confirmation for me about all of the knowledge that's been shared with me so far. Um, and the other thing that stuck out to me before was when you were trying to connect with him, and you were only getting the one word,
Yes.
and then it would shut down. It was like the energy would shut down, and I didn't want that to go by without, because I know that that was the way it was for me as well.
Oh,
And
wow.
so that for people who are listening to you as you're sharing your story, that uh, sometimes we do get shut down in the beginning because we
Yes.
don't have that ability to open yet. And but this, JT, what a teacher! Like he's
Quite.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Well, I have
yeah.
2 questions. So, one is you kept saying it, referencing, "Why are we here?" So, I'd love if you could spend a little time with that, and I know those reasons are different for everyone, but
Yes.
we are part of, to use the word again, a collective. And then some of the concepts he started to share, you had to take a breather, have a glass of wine, do what you needed to do, regroup, come back. What are one of the concepts that
Mm.
at first felt mind blowing, but now you fully understand in a way that perhaps you can share with us? So, 2 questions, and I'll help to keep you on track.
All right.
First
Yeah, that
one, why
second
are
one's a
we
doozy.
Yeah.
Why are we here, right? So, of course, yes, everybody has a different purpose for being here. A lot of it can be about what your previous incarnation was. Like, let's say you wanted to learn more about your heart, your loving and giving, and for whatever reason in a previous incarnation something came in, somebody stopped that, they were mean to you or something along those lines, you shut down your heart, where in that lifetime it was your goal to have them shut down your heart and then you reopen it. I learned that especially for strangely, and hopefully we can talk about this here, but we had a situation at my daughter's school where a child's mother actually killed the father and then tried to take herself out. She survived, But I was learning how to connect. I was learning how to get information. Was It was about these concepts. So I asked him to come forward and say, "What do you want us to do here? What do you want us to do for the kids?" And get information that way. But then also he said something that just blew me away. He said, "Forgive her. She
And
was
this is
just
the
doing."
husband. This was the
This is a
husband.
husband who transitioned already, who had
Mhm.
passed, and he had transitioned already. And I was having the conversation with him, and he said, "Forgive her. She was only doing what we agreed to do." And I said, "Well, please expand on that because I know that people are going to wonder." And he said, in a previous incarnation, it was him passionately killed her. And so they had agreed to come into this incarnation and do the reverse so that each of them could experience it. And that's really what it's about. We agree to do these crazy things for the experience. Our soul wants to learn. How does that feel? What's that going to do? What am I going to need to do to get back on track? And so all those people who are in your lives who you look at and you say, "Oh my gosh, they're terrible, they're rotten." They're your teachers too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's really a hard concept for a lot of people to understand is that they have come in to do this. You have agreed to do it. And again, sometimes people are not ready for that. They're not ready to hear that I
Mhm.
agreed to have this happen.
Right.
And so, I wasn't ready for that initially. It took me months to understand that. But in that particular situation, they had both experienced it and they were fine with it. So their soul selves, that energy that's still in spirit is fine. When we leave these bodies, we leave these incarnations
Mhm.
and we regroup with our soul selves, with the rest of our family, and we go, "Wow, that one was a doozy, huh? Well, I think I learned this, this, and this. What about you guys? What did you learn?" And then we say, "Okay, well, maybe next time we switch it up and you do this, I'll do this, and I want this lesson next time." And so we have the conversation, just like what I saw in the between life regression, that we agree to, okay, you're going to play this role, I'm going to play this role. And
Right.
of course, things change. Nothing is in stone because we have free will.
Mhm. Mhm.
We
Mhm.
absolutely have free will.
Mhm.
So, and then what was the other part of your
Yeah, so
question?
and this might actually overlap. One of the, as JT is sort of downloading all of these lessons, at first they were feeling mind-blowing, you would take a break, but then after some years, a concept that was perhaps challenging to conceptualize, now you get and can explain to us.
So the biggest one was that we don't necessarily originate from the Earth system, that we originate from outside of the Earth system. And that one was really hard for me. We grow up on this spinning rock and we think, "Oh, okay, this is the solar system and this is the only life that's here." I always knew there was life elsewhere. I was a scientist, from the get go. So there's no way there's that much stuff out there and there not be other life forms. There's just no way. It just didn't make any sense to
Exactly.
me, even as a kid. And so he would take me to these other planets. He would take me to places, to different places where I could experience those life forms. And yeah, it was really mind blowing. Some of them were just incredible. There was one where we went to one, it was all water. And I
Mhm.
was
We had
bobbing
another
in the
guest
water.
say this. Yes.
Mhm.
Yes, bobbing in the water and perfectly safe and sea life. Well, what we call sea life. They're,
Yeah.
for them, it's their
Life.
planet, right? Life came up to me and we were just chatting, just having a conversation, and they looked like the energy was dolphins and whales. Obviously, their energy was that. And so I said, are you on Earth too? And they said, well, a form of us is there. We agreed to go help you because your planet needs help. And so just conversations like that. I mean, that's something never would have thought of, never would have thought of before. And it opened me up to other things too. When I was doing a lot of house clearings and things like that, there was one instance where it was a creature that was in the basement. And it was the owner of the house was really trying to get rid of it, would go down there and get aggressive, and it would just get stronger and bigger and change form, shape shift and all of that. And so I came in with a team and just listened to. I have a beautiful, beautiful team that in spirit who comes in and assists with that. And I said, "What do we do?" And he said, my guide said, "Get low and crawl into the basement." And so that's what I did. And I'm not going to take the whole story here, but what it turned out to be was that he was left here. This energy was left here to watch the land. I mean, this was, I don't even know how long ago. It was so long ago. And there happened to be a portal in the basement, but he couldn't get through or he didn't know how to get through. And we realized once we opened the portal up that there was a second portal that he needed to go through. And so I went with him, and this other person went with him. Our consciousness went with him into the portals, and we took him through one, and then we took him through the next one. And I would think, Are you crazy, Serena? Are you really? Is this really happening? What in the heck? Did you have too much coffee? What's going on?" But the other person who was with me was seeing the exact same things, was hearing the exact same things. Because when he said, I said to him, "You need to go." And he said, "You need to come with me." And I looked up, I didn't even say a word. I looked up at the person who was with me, and she said, "We need to go with him." So, so again, we end up in this other planet that was all purple and pinks. And the other life forms came over, and he had shifted into the life form, into the energy life form that was the same as what was on the planet. So he was only in that very scary form to because he was trying to watch over things and was left here inadvertently. And so we got him back, and they were so happy and welcomed his energy. And then she and I came back, and it was one of those where you sit down. Okay, did we both have, hallucinations? What's
Yeah.
going on? But I knew it was real. And so those kinds of things, if it hadn't been for JT opening up the idea that there's so much more
Yeah.
than what we can see, here, feel, and know here, so much more. So
Mhm.
those kinds of things. But of course, now I mainly stay on planet Earth.
Yeah. I think it is what's so wonderful about this conversation is opening up that idea that our minds really struggle to think of these, even just other planets, and but what you're sharing is. I believe is truth, that, that you've been, and that JT, it's just, I don't know, it is, there's so much out there for us to understand, yet
Amazing.
it's hard, Kristen, just talking about all of us, when we think of the collective here, because we're all here on Earth, and,
Right.
many of us haven't had these experiences that,
Right.
sound like you were on, ayahuasca, in
Right.
order to,
Yes, that's a
you
good,
know,
yeah, right.
that's the only way that we can achieve that is by, having some type of an experience like that. And, yeah, it is just, it's amazing. Was an amazing story.
It was, and believe me, when I say it, I don't tell a lot of people about that,
Mhm.
obviously, because again, it's one of those concepts that's a little bit beyond the, oh, your loved one passed, and but I can still talk to them and they're still around, those basic things. It's not really basic, but those standard ways that we can communicate with those who have passed or spirit guides or whatever. Yeah, this takes it to a very different level for sure.
One to 100 steps further. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
definitely.
So you mentioned earlier that this is a very unique time to be incarnate on Earth.
Yes.
Can you elaborate?
Sure. Yes, definitely. Well, we are creating something new here. We're creating a new energy here on Earth. Where this has been going on for decades, obviously, but it's really ramping up. And I always say, it was so hard. I'm so grateful for all of those beginner psychic mediums in like the 70s or even back
Mhm.
with Edgar Casey's time with the spiritualists and all of that, because we were a long way away from those energies. Our frequency, the earth frequency, was a lot lower then. We
Mm.
have done so much to bring up the frequency of the earth that it is easier for us to get rid of that veil. And that's what's happening now, is that, especially the kids coming in now, they don't have a veil.
Mm.
They don't have one unless we put it on them, which, hoping that that doesn't happen. But
Mhm.
but of course, that is their path if that does. But they don't have a veil, and the veil has been thinner. It's been I shouldn't say thinner. They say the veil, but I say frequency. Our frequency here on earth is higher. We
Mhm.
are at higher frequency, and so we can access the higher frequencies even more so now. And
Mhm.
so given that, we are, I really hope that we can get this done. And, we've just been working on this for so many years. And it just is a matter of, what do we need to do next? And the next thing is, again, it's about frequency. It's about bringing people's
Mhm.
energy up. For me, I teach people how to
Mhm.
connect to the other side, how to connect with their soul selves, how to meditate, because meditation is absolutely fabulous for raising your frequency. Other things, it doesn't have to be sit down meditation. It can be a walk, it can be a walk,
Yeah.
it can be gardening, it can be different things. Getting out of our head, getting out of
Yeah.
what I call 3D land,
Mm.
Mhm.
and putting ourselves into those other frequencies. We still have to be here. We chose
Mhm.
Mhm.
incarnating. We chose
Mhm.
these bodies. We chose to be in this dense energy, but we can be in both places at once. We can be here and our consciousness be here as well as the higher frequencies. And so that's
Mhm.
another thing that I teach is how are you in both places at once? And by doing that, then we get the wonderful opportunity of seeing everything from that higher perspective. We get
Mhm.
to see it as our souls see it. And that's a game changer when we're talking about
Mhm.
decisions that we need to make, where we want to live, what's for our highest good, all of that. It's all about getting into the frequency so that I can see and have information from that higher realm.
Mm. Yes, so I have 2 questions. That's wonderful. Um, uh, One of the questions is your, children, do they have contact with their brother? Does he do are they connected as you are?
We started out that way. But kids, right? My daughter, oh my gosh, she was 5 when JT left, and she can see, and I mean see. She sees figures and people, and she's so psychic and so tuned in that it scares her. And so she's backed off a little bit. She still tunes into it when she needs to, especially that psychic energy. This space feels weird. I need out of here. She really does listen to that. In the beginning, she I believe she did get messages from JT. My son did too. He was 3 at the time, so of course it took a couple of years. My son hears, and as time has gone on, he's hasn't practiced that as much. He could absolutely do it, but of course he relies on me. What did the angels say, Mom? What did my guide say, Mom? What's JT say, Mom? So, so they can do it. They
Mhm.
absolutely have the ability. Whether or not they follow through is another thing.
Well, and my follow-up question, and we had talked before, is JT always the little boy?
So he comes to me as a little boy when I need him to be a little boy. When I need that funny laugh, the belly laugh, the that kid that I miss so much, that I just want to hug and, just have conversation with him. He'll come as the 7-year-old when I need him to. But more often he comes as a master. He comes as he looks very different. In that life between lives regression. One thing which I didn't talk about was when he came to me, he was a little boy, and then when I asked my question, did we agree to this? He morphed into his soul self. It freaked me out a little bit because it didn't look anything like his incarnation, but I
Mm,
knew it was him, and that's how, people ask, "Well, I never met my great-grandmother, so how do I know if that's her?" And you just know. You just know that it's them. And so that is the energy that he comes as, and it is more of a 30-something, sandy blonde hair, green eyes, which is not what he had here. So when he comes as that figure, then I know uh, I better shape up. He's coming as teacher. He's coming as my teacher, and he still says mom. He doesn't call me. Doesn't say now, Serena. He doesn't do that. He says, "Mom, let's do this. Let's. I
mm,
need you to do this now." And so that is how he comes often when I need to learn something or when we need to do something as a unit for whatever, for humanity or whatever. So
wow.
very different.
So I, as the co-host, need to be mindful of time. I could listen to you endlessly. The
Oh,
questions
well,
are
thank
stopping
you.
in my mind. Yeah, you are such a captivating and compelling teacher.
Mhm.
Thank
Um,
you.
yeah, so 2 questions again. One is if you could suggest one thing people could do to shift into higher frequency. And then the final, of course, is how do people learn more about you, your books, your events, things of those types.
Absolutely. Early on, when I was beginning my work and I was working on frequency, because again, the grief would just, gosh, suck me in. What they told me, my teachers and JT said, shut off the news. That's number
Mm,
1. Shut off the news. And I said, "Well, what if I need to learn something? What if I need to know something happened?" And he said, "Don't worry. We'll let you know. We'll let you know if there's something that you need to know." And they do. So I don't watch the news. It is, it's very low frequency. All of the energy that's there, it's very low frequency. So things that are in your world that are low frequency like that, if you have negative people who are constantly saying, I can't, that's going to affect you. What is in your energy, what is around you affects your energy. So I'm not saying to throw those people to the curb, or anything like that, but limit your energy with them. You want to focus on things that make you happy. What do you do that's creative? Doing things like that. Painting is wonderfully meditative. And again, I did say before, meditation is a great way to raise your frequency. But that can be painting, that can be crocheting, that can
Mhm.
be walking. I do a labyrinth walk. I love doing labyrinth walks, and that's
mm,
a way of meditating too. So,
mm,
those kinds of things that make your heart feel really good,
mm,
those you hold on to. Things that make your heart sink or you kind of bristle. Now, when that kind of stuff comes into my world, I really bristle because like, wow, that's not part of who I am. That's not part of my existence here anymore. And so out it goes. And we have control over that. We are co-creators. We are the ones that are creating our reality. So you have control over the energy that's in your space for sure.
Mm.
And I have some really fun things that are coming up. My website, the very simple website is bridgetohealing.com. Thank you. And then there is also my name, which is sarinabaptista.com. Whatever way gets you there. And yeah, and I love to teach as well. The center, thank you for putting that up there. is the Bridge to Healing Psychic Center. Lots of classes and different things like that. Really, it's about sharing. When I said, did I agree to this? The reason why I agreed to this was to do exactly what I'm doing now, to be the teacher, to be the bridge between this world and the next, to show people how to get there. And that it's really not that hard. If I can do it, anyone can do it. And I didn't share with you, but I was a software engineer. So if I can do it, then anybody can do it.
Yeah.
Doing that shift into the mindset of being connected, and that we are so much more here than just the bodies that we are in right now.
Mhm,
God, so
Definitely.
inspirational. So
mhm.
inspirational. Just a
Thank
million
you.
thank yous. So
I'm
appreciate your
so
time.
appreciative. Oh my gosh, I'm so appreciative of you and what you're doing here, and helping us to give voice, because again, JT is all about getting the information out. We
Mhm.
are we are all about that. So thank you for doing this, and for letting us talk about these crazy things.
Truly our honor.
How I Made It Through is produced and distributed by EIQ Media, LLC. Elevate your emotional IQ with podcasts and content focused on overcoming adversity, leadership, mental health, entrepreneurship, spiritually transformative experiences, and more.